Good morning, everybody. It's great to virtually see everybody today. My name is Yuriko Ishida. I like to introduce my presentation today is about how to differentiate literacy instruction using station rotations. So before I get to the content, I would like to talk about myself and then my teaching context because it relates to why I chose this topic to present today. So I'm originally from Japan and I'm a Japanese teacher at the Japanese English Dual Immersion School in Michigan. And then in my school, students spend approximately 50% of the day in English, learning literacy, science, social studies, math, and then also another 50% in Japanese, also learning math and then Japanese literacy. So literacy instruction in both languages in my school. And then I shouldn't say program, but it's actually the strengths of our program is that we do have native speakers of English and Japanese. So there are students that are native speakers of Japanese. They were born in Japan. They be only speaking Japanese at home, and then they just happen to be in Michigan in their lifetime for their father's job or some parents' job relocations and this stuff. And then we do have heritage speakers who are born in US or other countries, either mother or father speaks Japanese, and they speak more than one language at home. And also we have second language learners. Those are mostly American students who speak only English at home, and then they come to our school in kindergarten and then first to start learn Japanese. So my students' proficiency levels are so different. And then my struggle was like, how do I meet the needs of all the students? Right? So this is the solution, not the solution, but I'm still trying every day, but this is how I try to solve my problem. So we decided to do on differentiated instruction. And then why do we need to differentiate? Again, I said I have a really big range of students in terms of their ability. So a simple answer is that students in the elementary grades, they vary greatly. And if teachers want to maximize their students' individual potential, they will have to attend to the difference. And then there are so many ways to differentiate. You can differentiate content, what we teach, and then what we want them to be able to do. So it's important to know where they are so that we can provide students with choices that they are at that are their level. And then that's not too high, that's not too easy, so that they don't feel bored. And also students can get additional resources if necessary to match their levels of understanding. We can differentiate process, how students make sense of their learning. So we can provide options at different levels of difficulty or based on students' interest. We can offer different amount of we can offer different amount of like teacher support for a task. Some students need additional support, and then some students are okay to do it by themselves. So we also have to pay attention to what kind of learner they are. Are they audio learner, visual learners, or kinesthetic learners? We can attend to those differences too. And the products, it's how to demonstrate their understanding. We can give them choices about how students express their understanding. We could do paper and the pencil kind of assessments. They could type, they could draw, they could shoot videos to show their understanding. Finally, learning environment is how to run the classroom. We always have to provide a safe and a positive environment for learning, and then we have to allow for individual work preference. So in my classroom, we have students that he has a really hard time sitting still. So I would give him a wobble still so he can move. And then that's better for himself. And then that's better for other students. So that students doesn't have to get up and then, walking around the classroom. So providing those safe and then best learning environment is also important. Now I like to explain how station rotations work. So this one is basically called guided reading. I learned this concept since I moved to US and I started working in American schools. My English teachers, my partner English teachers do this in their English literacy instructions too, because the same thing is happening for them. They have native English speakers and then they have ESL learners in the same classroom. And then what they do is differentiate their instruction by using this guided reading model. So Richardson said practice on guided reading is to practice reading strategies with a teacher while other students are working independently at their working centers, working stations. So what I do is we have a teacher's table, and then I pull a small group of students to my table and then work with them. That's something that they need to learn. So it could be the reading materials at their level, or it could be the skill that they need to be mastered. And then while I'm working with those small group of students, the rest of students are working independently or doing pair work or group work. And then they are all by themselves. I'm not there to support them. And then students move one station to another. That could mean they physically move to station. That's actually better for younger learners so they can kind of move their body like every 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so. But if it's not feasible in your learning environment, then they can just stay at their seat and then you can chunk the activities and then you can prepare 3 to 4 different activities in 1 hour and then they will switch to different activity when the time comes. So this is how we started and then it's how it's recommended to implement station rotations or guided reading. So first you're gonna have to prepare for it. If you can't just start it next day, believe me, it does not work. Think about your logistics, like how many students you have, how much time you have, and decide how many groups you can make. Right? And then when you make groups, you have to do some assessments to have a good idea of where students are, not just your feelings. And then you finally get to teach and have some time to reflect and modify for your next day or next unit. So I'm going to go into the detail for each step. So step 1 is preparing for stations. This step is very, very important, especially if you have younger students like me or a group of students with behavior issues. For me, I normally spend a month to train my students to be able to work by themselves. So working with students at the teacher's table, they don't need much practice. Because I'm right there, they know what to do with me. The problem is when they are not working with me, they have to be able to understand what they need to be doing and then solve any problems that occur during that time. All right. So students have to students have to understand what they need to be doing. And then so again, the Richardson gave me some in her book recommended some literacy workstations. For example, they can quietly read or they can body read. They get in a pair and then they take turns to read. Or readers theater, it's like it's a play, but they can do they don't more like not they don't have to memorize the lines, but they can read the script. The point is as they practice to perform, they will have to read the text over and then over, and then they communicate with each other. Oh, how should we read this sentence? What kind of emotions we're gonna put into? So it's a great fluency practice. They could, of course, write about their day. We can just set a topic. What is your favorite animal? What's your favorite activities to do? And then we can do word study. For Japanese, learning Chinese character, kanji is a big thing. So I normally set up one station for them to practice kanji. And then they can do computer so that they can be quiet. Just kidding. But if they do computer, they can listen some, audio and they answer some questions. They could do some learning apps to spend their time. And then, so the important thing is students already practicing what they need to be doing, those centers, those like independent working stations. If you just put a new thing the day that you want to teach, they will come to you when you want to teach. And then you cannot really utilize your time to teach. So 1 month might be too much for many of you, but believe me, this will save your time if you see it like long term. And then step 2 is assessment and the grouping. We can group students in many different ways. You can group them by proficiency. You can, by proficiency, I mean, in terms of literacy, it could mean if they can, read accurately, or if they can understand, meaning comprehension, fluency, or maybe for younger grade, it could mean letter recognition. We can also group students based on target skills. This is great when you want to reteach something we already taught. Sometimes I do it in math instructions too, because some students, I taught the whole class, but a handful of students did not understand the concepts. They did not master the skill. So I just put those students to me, and then I will reteach them because that's what they need. But the rest of the students who already know, they don't want to hear that again because they already know. They will be bored, and then they don't, they are not going to be engaged. So I want to prepare something different for them. And then I also want to mention, so when they are not working with me, when they are doing like working stations, we can group students however we want, depends on the group of activities. So the second language teaching research show that if the goal of the activity is to improve accuracy, you can group the low students with high students. So the lower students will attend more meetings and the accuracy. But if the goal is to improve fluency, then you can group students about the same level so they feel comfortable practicing many times. And then we can group them by interest. We can group them if they like a certain animal. Then we can read the book about the animals together. Excuse me. So my recommendation for older learner is to make a group of about 6 students. I think it's pretty good number of students to handle at a time. And also you can make, pair work, or you can do 3 people doing something together as a group. But if you have younger students like me, I would say like 4 to 5 students for lower grade is the maximum. But at the same time, if you have many students, you don't want to have 10 different groups. So you have to compromise like what works well in your classroom too. And then step 3, you finally get to teach. And then, so in guided reading, we call it instructional level, which is basically ZPD, slightly higher level than they can do it by yourself. So those like their reading level or what they can do by themselves, they can work in their centers. They can do them by themselves. But when they come to me, I want to do something a little bit higher than their level. right? And then also you should differentiate by using a variety of text. You can meet the lowest group more often. I meet my lowest reading group 3 times a week, but I only see my highest reading group once a week because lowest group students need to, improve their reading more. Also, you should do formative assessment, record keeping while you are teaching. It doesn't have to look good. You can just use a piece of paper or even like post it, sticky note. Just see, just write whatever you see, and then it's gonna give you ideas how you should group the students later, because you're going to see students like maybe 2 or 3 groups of students a day, and then you're going to forget by the end of the lesson how the first lesson went, for how the first group went. So it's always nice to keep a track or record keeping. And then you will have to maximize your instruction time, saying like you don't want to waste any minute because the time is so limited. You don't want to waste any minute looking for your materials or teaching other students what they need to be doing. So I know this happens, but like you should have everything on your table and then be ready to teach before the lesson starts. And then important thing for lower grade like myself, so do not let students interrupt you. So they will come to you, can I use the bathroom? How do I do this? They don't even acknowledge that they are there. I know it sounds bad, but if you don't look at them, if you don't react, then they will walk away, or unless it's emergency. So here's the example. I normally spend kanji and also like preview the vocabulary and then read it together. And then we work on comprehension questions or work on retelling. And then step 4, we can review note checklist you took during small group instructions. And then you need to think anything to reteach or anything to review. They didn't understand this time, so we have to reteach. And then also, should we change groups? And then how was working stations? Was it too challenging? Should we change the instruction? And then please know that groups are flexible. You can always change it whenever it's necessary. So if you see some behavior problems because you put certain students together, you can always, change it. And if you think, oh, this level was too easy for him, you can move him to a different group so that he can be more challenged. So here are the materials that I wanted to share. I know many of you do not teach Japanese, so it only applies probably just 1 or 2 of you. But these are the materials that I like. They are like leveled. So starting from 1 sentence a page, of course, with a picture, to few sentences a page, or like, it's more like chapter books kind of book. Or if this is still too hard, too challenging for my lowest readers who are still trying to memorize letters, then I will bring English leveled books, and then I will translate. So it just have a word in a page, so they can practice reading letters. And then I also have super high students who are native speakers. So I would bring some Japanese textbooks from Japan that are Japanese elementary schools are using, so they can get some age appropriate resources and they can, be challenged. So this is my final slide. I wanted to mention about so my learning context is my teaching context is kind of unique, and then I wanted to share how this applies to foreign language classroom. Okay, so it is possible to set up just working stations, and it does not have to be always literacy. You can work in listening or speaking, like interpersonal tasks. And then it's always nice to increase choices and then develop autonomy. Students are more engaged, students are more motivated to do something by themselves. And then also please do not feel pressure that it has to happen every single day. I do it every day, but it doesn't have to. Sometimes I don't have 60 minutes, then I'll like, okay, we're gonna just do, 2 rotations. Or today I'm gonna just do whole class lessons, something like that. And then integrate technology where it makes sense. If I were teaching older grade, I would utilize QR code a lot. So you would place QR code across the room so students will walk there, scan the QR code, and then they can get the instructions what to do in their centers. I haven't done it with my students since they're only 7 or 8 years old, but I'm sure it works well with older learners. You can use Google Docs for some collaborative writing, or you can pull up some authentic materials from the website. So you can be very creative with working stations. You can do skit role play, collaborative writing. Of course, it will increase the voice levels in the classroom, but come on, it's like foreign language classes. You have to, speak and then make some noises. So what I wanted to do for the last few minutes in my presentation, I have this Padlet link. I already put in the chat, but if you could just click and then go and then write down what kind of stations that you can think of using with your learners. I thought maybe students can work in skit or role play and collaborative writing. And then I don't think I can. I could probably share the screen of my Padlet, but I don't think I should. So I think if you could just go to the Padlet, should I? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can open the Padlet and we can see the Padlet, and do you have a second screen where you can still see us and see what we're doing in the Padlet?
I can see, yes, but I'm not sure if others can see. I mean, okay, as long as you can go to the Padlet, yeah, I guess you can see what people are typing. So I know we only have a few participants, but if you could share some ideas to brainstorm. Oh, that's great. Draw the reading as a comic or storyboard. That would be really nice activities. And I think my students can do that too. I will click like.
I just know with literacy circles that especially as they get older, then you can develop the skill of going and looking for the information that you need. So if you're reading a book and it's about a place and you don't know that place, then you can give the role to somebody to go find a map of that place to share with everybody else. If you've got a text and you're going, just different ways of getting at that text. But definitely, like, you can use it for teaching strategies. So again, it would seem with young learners, it still seems like some of those things are not possible. But I thought it was really valuable, Yuriko, that you were talking so much about how you make it work with young learners to do this, because I think a lot of instructors are afraid to give young learners that much autonomy. And so the thing about the month to train them to do it, I think that's how you make it doable. And people who think that won't work aren't giving it the training time that it needs to work.
Right.
So I think that's really valuable, being realistic about that. Right. Can you do this in an online setting? How would you?
So when it was remote last year, so we kind of so students are not working with teachers, are doing like asynchronous work basically. So they are not really on the video chat. They were just doing their work in their house. And then I did not do it, but my partner teacher, they assigned the groups, like, oh, here in this group, sign in this Google Meet at 10, and then here in this group, sign in this Meet at 10:20, something like that. So yeah, you could still differentiate instructions.
Okay.
Right. So I think I have 5 minutes left. I don't really have 5 minutes left because 5 minutes is transition time. So if you have any questions, this is the last time to ask me. And then if not, then I think that's it for my presentation.
Yeah, and your Padlet's still available. We can embed your Padlet on your presenter page.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Adding to it if they weren't watching live. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
great. Okay, thank you. So did Brittany or Erica want to add anything before we go away?
Yes, I've seen this happening in my kids' classroom when I volunteered to help the classroom, but I didn't really know what was happening. So Yuriko's presentation really helped me understand what's used for young learners in the classroom. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. Okay, so let's and Brittany, you turned your video on. Is that because you wanted to ask a question or make a comment or?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I've done things like this with my older students, but I've never really taught the little ones. Actually gave me some ideas to use with my own kid.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because their attention span is so short. Like they really enjoy doing it. Like, are we doing stations today? I'm like, no, today we are doing whole class. They'll be disappointed. I'm like, oh, because they like to change it like every 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Then they feel like, okay, I don't really like this, but I can, take it for another 10 minutes,
Well, and they have something specific to do in that time too, and I just think, having them engaging, you have most of them engaging in something actively at the time, and you don't have this time that a lot of teachers fall into where it's very teacher fronted and you think you're doing something with everybody, but you're not. You're doing something and they're sitting,
Right.
And so this really, it opens that up. But the piece about that making it possible to differentiate and how important differentiation is in your situation, I think that's huge. That gives you a way to do good differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is powerful. It's powerful, and a lot of people, know of it, but not how to make it work. It would be really super helpful if you do you mind going to your Padlet and would you add more of those ideas of things that you do at stations, and that people want to ask questions about that, they could do so each card to be your ideas that you add too, and people could respond to it and say, well, like, how would you do that? Or I like that idea. So that would be great if you put more of your examples up there.
Well,